And here we go again, more reports of the wolves of Wisconsin. I am being told that the population is up quite high and they're desolating deer herds and cattle and people's dogs. So let's take a look at some more right now. So, all right, let's talk about this thing. Now, you were telling me you live in Tomahawk, Wisconsin, correct? Northern
I
Wisconsin.
live east of Tomahawk, yeah,
Okay,
out in the farm country in the woods.
all right. Okay, now I know that you were the reason I'm contacting you is Dick Ellis of All Wisconsin Outdoors referred you, and I've heard that the wolf situation is pretty severe up there, and I've heard different stories about the wolf situation. I have seen some DNR reports, and I think the fear is that they're supposedly desolating deer herds and herding cattle and things of that nature, and dogs and stuff of that. Is this to your experience? You live up there. You said you have seen quite a few of them, and you would definitely share your knowledge of it with us. Can
That's
you
what I'd like to do. I've been at this for many, many years.
Well, if you could do that, that would be great.
And
So share it with the public. You know?
well, I
Uh,
saw my first wolves probably in the mid to late 1980s,
okay.
and that was in Langlade County. I was working, and I came down a road, and Ormsby Road in Langlade County, and there was four wolves standing at the end of it, clear as you could imagine. No question in my mind that's what they were. And I
Right.
don't even think the DNR knew about them back in those days. That was just about 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I moved to the location where I live now, there was wolves living here at that time, and we've had really constant problems in northern Wisconsin and also central Wisconsin with a growing wolf population, decimated the deer herds, at least in places where there's not too much else to eat besides deer,
Right.
and also causing really hundreds and hundreds of problems in recent years. Each year, there's 100 at least in the past 5 or 6 years, and also around 2010 of conflicts that have been confirmed by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources with wolves.
Yeah.
So, my main message is the wolves are way above the carrying capacity right now for social, and they're at biological carrying capacity right now. About 1,236 wolves is what they estimate.
Hmm.
And we've reached a time period where we need really some control over the wolf numbers. We're actually past that time period because it's going to be hard to get them under control at this point.
And that is the big argument. Hunter Nation, many, and before I get too off topic, I mean, I've worked with the DNR and we've had some great conversations. We've talked about the elk herds and many, many different situations. And, you know, I, I guess I need people to understand that we're not attacking people. We're trying to get this resolved, and it's a problem. And that they really, it isn't just the DNR. People need to know that that agenda, that problem with the wolves, they're on the Endangered Species Act, and that has to be lifted for us to have control over some of this. And when they organize a hunt, they can't just set a standard for, oh, we'll do a week and you're only allowed this many. There has to be some type of, maybe like a deer season would be. Allow it, give it so much time, and see if we can't do some type of clear them out. Some of them, because it's just the balance of control, and that's, I think, that if they only understood that, because the problem it causes, of course, as you said, with all these wolves, and they're still not on the Endangered Species Act. It desolates it. Numbers of deer herds, and it does a lot of other things. And some people think it's cruel But if they've ever seen a fawn being eaten alive, they might not think it's so cruel. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but it's a problem. The numbers are quite high. I,
Let's start from the beginning of this discussion, okay?
yes.
Wolves were placed on the endangered species list. They did gradually migrate in from Minnesota on their own.
Hmm.
Even if people don't believe that, they would have anyway, because now there's close to 3,000 wolves in Minnesota. So they would be looking for new territory, and Wisconsin's right next door anyway, even if they, didn't just move in by themselves, which they did.
Right.
So the Endangered Species Act, actually, we had some Western states that were delisted by Congress, and that was in 2011 when that was done. And they included Montana and Idaho and parts of adjacent states to that, and they're still delisted. They're having the same problems we are, though. They're having trouble getting them to the goal that the legislatures there have selected. Wisconsin, in the meantime, has had a goal of 350 up until recently with a new plan. The absolute level that they've selected to reduce the numbers of wolves is what it is right now, which is close to the carrying capacity, biologically speaking, and far past the social carrying capacity. And these are concepts that I think a lot of people don't understand. In any case, in Wisconsin, we do not manage our animals above carrying capacity if we can avoid it. And that's what's actually happening. What has Wisconsin actually done to get delisting? That's the question we need to ask. And
Right.
basically, it's pretty much nothing. When wolves were delisted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they went along with it grudgingly in the last season, and we had to have an emergency season. It lasted 3.5 days. That's how fast they killed the number of wolves that were allocated back in February of 2021.
I
And
remember.
the other 3 seasons we had, there was really no appreciable impact of the harvest that we had. That those harvests would never have happened if it weren't for our legislature saying we must have a harvest when they're delisted.
Yeah.
After they were relisted on the endangered species list, what did Wisconsin do to defend our right to manage wolves? Because the DNR says all the time, we want to manage wolves. But what did they actually do? And
Right.
actually, they didn't do anything in the court case the last time. And the
Right.
time before that, in 2014, they sent a written brief. They didn't even send a lawyer to defend our rights.
No.
So I
I,
think it's kind of a pretend statement saying that Wisconsin, the government actually supports delisting because they never really did anything to make delisting happen. And that's administrations from both sides of the aisle that happened in.
right. Right. Well, it's true. Lori, the governor, did sign something to protect them. Uh, and I know he's going to be stepping out of office, and they're looking to get somebody else in there. So,
Case, I would say, of urban versus rural a little bit. People
correct.
with experience, direct experience, such as myself, with wolves. And I've been out there bear hunting and deer hunting and doing all the things people do up here and just walking around with my dogs. And in the process, I've encountered 37 wolves right in my neighborhood, pretty much, except for those 4 in Langley County and a few towards Rhinelander. Otherwise, it's been within 5-10 miles of my house that I've run into all these wolves because I was out there all the time when I was younger. We don't have dogs anymore. We got too old to handle hunting dogs, but believe me, I was out there a lot. And you just run into them when they live in your neighborhood. It's not like they're an extreme danger to people from a physical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint, they very much changed my life and my the way I relate to the outdoors, basically, because you always kind of had to be looking over your shoulder, especially if you had a dog with you. And they don't even see you. They look at you and you might as well not even be there. All they're looking at is the dog. And I've had that at close range.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary thought for dog owners, and it's a scary thought for farmers, and it's a scary thought for sportsmen. We put our money into licenses, and that money is used for land regeneration and wildlife habitat. And there's a solution right there. Okay, there you go. Open it up. Let them buy a license and let them go hunting these wolves. I hate to think of it the way it is, and I know we like to see wolves on the landscape, but it's like anything else. You got to have a balance, and they have to be controlled, and it's beyond that point now.
And we're way past the point where we could actually eliminate them. That is absolutely not even possible with these numbers. So some cooperation and collaboration on this would be nice from both sides. Most of the compromising has been done on our side because, if you go out now and you're going to run a bear or something, people have cameras out. If there's wolves there or any wolf activity, that's it. You're done for the day.
Yeah, yeah,
And so that's just a small example of what we face. I have lost 2 dogs to wolves, one in 2009 and one in 2018. One of them during training season for bears and the
yeah.
other during bobcat season.
Right.
And so a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know have lost dogs. And also I had a job that I was in touch with farmers all over the northeast part of the state. And really, almost universally, the farmers will say, we don't hate wolves. We don't wish them evil. But on the other hand, we don't want them near our farms because they do damage. And that's purely borne out by the numbers. Over 100, just about 100 conflicts this year proven. And that's not even counting the ones that aren't reported.
Yeah. Well, Lori, it sounds like a lot of us are all on the same side here. We want to see something done about it. And hopefully they can cooperate with us. And I know, okay, it's a federal act. Well, something has to get moved. We have to do something, and they need to listen because it's causing a problem where the money won't be coming. We're losing hunters now, well, lots of them, and people don't realize it, and they keep forgetting. They don't understand. Some people they're totally against hunting. That's fine and dandy. You don't have to be for it, but understand that money goes into land regeneration and wildlife habitat, and the DNR depends upon it, and many organizations depend upon it to help keep our forests, our prestige forests the way they are, and they help keep a balance in the animal world to make it right. And now we're looking at a problem that 40, 50 years ago we may not have thought was going to be a problem, but it is right now. And
Well, about 40 years ago, we had a meeting of the bear hunters and the farmers and the trappers and discussed what are we going to do, because at that time there was just a few packs in the state.
yeah,
And they had this vote there. I was the only woman in that group, and they had this vote of whether we were going to ever have a wolf season or not. Well, that had never occurred to me that we would need one or even want one. Why would somebody want to go after wolves?
right,
I've learned a lot since then, though.
yeah,
And
yes,
I think even the DNR has learned a lot, that they had no idea that they were going to be this prolific and this adaptable to various environments, not just the remote wooded spots where they were originally designed to live in the wolf plan, but there's actually been a pack that had pups in the corporate city limits of Wisconsin Rapids, just one example. They're very adaptable animals, somewhat like coyotes, and they're very smart and intelligent animals too. So unfortunately, in my mind, but fortunately for those who want to hunt them and trap them, which is fine with me if they want to do that,
right,
we need to have a season in order to start to get control, and we need to have wildlife services be able to conduct lethal removals, because in the years they could do that, the conflict situations did start reducing, and that's going to, I think, have an impact on how we manage wolves.
right, yeah. And it's. Oh, are you there? Okay, yeah. For a
Well, I'm
moment,
here all right.
it looked like we were losing you, but we got it. Yeah, that's the thing too. And a lot of these people, you can sit in office and look at numbers, but the numbers may not be accurate. I mean, if you look at the people that are out there all the time, you look at all the photos, the cameras, you look at on Wisconsin Outdoors, it's been explained it pretty well. They showed the map. You've seen that. Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
they're very close to the area where I'm at, and I'm in the southeast area of Wisconsin. And I will say Now, my sister, a week ago or so, told me, she said, I saw a couple of them. I said, you did? And she says, well, coyotes don't travel in packs. I says, no, they're pretty much loners, you know. And she says, and they were pretty big. And she says, I'm sure they were wolves. And she says, there was a couple of them together. And I said, I'm not surprised, you know. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, those numbers are increasing very high. They're high numbers right now. And yeah, that's a problem. You
Well,
get
I've been part of the volunteer people who have been tracking wolves. I think it's been about 14 years I participated in that. And I have three different units up here, 200 square miles each, that I
okay,
track. And so it's where I live and where I hunt. So I'm pretty familiar with the territory. And yet, tracking those wolves, even if you're doing an adequate job, which the DNR is doing an adequate job of tracking, when you get this many animals, it's really hard to count all of them. And the
right,
DNR also does not count non-pack associated wolves, which would be the loners and dispersers. Well,
right,
the official people who are the educators in this and the ones who have done a lot of research on wolves estimate that to be between 10 and 15% of the wolf population is loners. So
yeah,
even that maximum carrying capacity number we've got now, it does not include the loners and the dispersers who may eventually become pack animals. And it doesn't include anything outside the formal tracking areas. And I think with your area code, I can guess that you're kind of outside of that area. So that wouldn't even include those animals. It also would include animals detected outside of the tracking period, which is December 1st until March 31st. So
yeah,
if you see something in the middle of the summer and send it into your DNR staff or something like that, chances it won't be included in the count. And
yeah.
this is a problem because I look at other states and how they count, and there's a variety of different methods being used. And we haven't had very many collars that have been successful in recent years. They just switched the radio collars, so we're having a better um, results as far as determining pack size and stuff like that using the radio collars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. There's no question about it. The numbers are up high, and something really needs to be done. And I mean, we have the proof. If they want to look at it, we have the proof.
We do.
And and the thing is that's funny or strange about it, kind of odd about it, is that it seems like nobody's listening. And I think some people probably are, but it's a matter of getting this law changed. And we have to somehow, they're going to have to open up their minds to that and say, hey, we got a problem going on here. They're going to lose a lot of money if they don't, a lot more money.
I kind of see it like a lot of minority issues because I think we all understand that hunters and farmers are in the minority nowadays.
Right,
And honestly, it seems like no matter what kind of stories you tell people or how often you talk and the figures I spew out because I'm big on numbers,
right.
you have to experience it until you really understand what we're talking about. What is it like to have your dog killed while
Yeah,
you're hunting it? Or even your pet killed on your back doorstep, like some people have had. People it just doesn't get through to them as a major issue for us. And I think people have reacted over time, and you can kind of look at the numbers and figure this out. When they have an issue with a wolf and the investigator comes and they're very good at coming, they're all very experienced and they do a good job, but they can't, their hands are tied as far as really doing something to permanently solve the problem for you.
right,
After a while, if that happens over and over again, like for farmers, they just quit calling. What's the point of having that investigator come and getting on the map? And
yeah,
I truly believe that there's a lot of people that are handling matters in their own way. And unfortunately, that's not the way our government is supposed to react to tragedies and problems that any of us have with anything,
right.
um, like floods and hurricanes and all that stuff. They need to be responding in a responsible manner. And they can't as long as they're on the endangered species list, the way that is written right now.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, and and we're fighting it. We're doing everything we can, and hopefully we'll get somewhere with this. And that's all we can do at this point. So I
And
vote
I wouldn't blame the courts either, because that's a way people kind of push it out of their realm of being able to do anything about it. There
right,
has not been a biological reason for any relisting that we experienced, and we've had more than just the two. That's always been a technical issue related to the law that's not being followed. So it has nothing to do with the biology of wolves and all that stuff and their survival, nothing whatsoever. Wisconsin actually has the second highest wolf population in the lower 48. And
yeah,
it may not look that way if you look at all the numbers, because other states count their wolves when it's a higher population, like in the summertime, some of them,
yeah,
and they also add the 15% or 10% of the loner and dispersing wolves, which Wisconsin. So we have the highest number, aside from Minnesota, of any state in the lower 48, which is ridiculous. We have way more many people than most of those states.
yeah.
Wyoming, their goal has been 350. They've been able to maintain that goal for over a decade, and they have 1.5 times the space that Wisconsin has and 1/10 of the population.
Okay,
They were delisted by Congress and stuck in with the other Rocky Mountain states after some court battles that happened around 2014 to 2017. Then they were put back in. So they've had a season, a limited season every year, even with the 350. And that's 100 in Yellowstone and the rest in the other parts of Wyoming. Most of Wyoming actually is an open predator state that nobody needs even a license
yeah,
to take a wolf out. They just need to
yeah.
report it.
Well, I hope they don't let it get to that point here. But
It doesn't need to. Yeah, it
right,
doesn't need to.
exactly.
But why is it that Wyoming gets that special consideration and yet Wisconsin is sitting here always being on the endangered species list, except for some short periods of time?
Right,
And we can't really do anything as far as lethal removals, which is the most effective way in some circumstances to handle the problem.
right,
This goes on and on and on. 30 years of going to meetings and nothing happening. It's just, what do you do? it's
right,
it's very frustrating.
right. Yeah. Well, you were I was losing you there for a moment, but I caught most of it, so we'll be all right with that. But yeah, it's been an ongoing battle. So let's just keep fighting it, Lori. That's what we have to do. There's always going to be changes in the balance in the system. There always is. There always has been. But we've always controlled it. Now we're not doing that at this point. And that so we
Yeah,
have
this is totally out of control. And
yes,
I would ask people to think about, with their pets and their livestock, especially, look for signs that something's wrong. If you see deer that are kind of huddled together in a group, real tight, that's a defense mechanism that might clue you into the fact that there's wolves around. Or
mhm,
if they're running like mad across the field and everybody's taken off, we always look behind them and see maybe what's coming, because the animals sense what's going on. I know I got horses next door, and if the horses are all at the fence looking in one direction, their noses are better than a hound dog. They
oh
really
yeah,
are. And whether it's a bear or a wolf or some wolves, watch for those tracks, keep your animals under control, and
yeah,
just be very aware of what's going on. Don't bring don't have anything in the yard if you can avoid it that might bring the wolves
right.
in the way of attracting them. There's a lot of things, and there's some advice up on the web that people can use, and especially farmers, but it's difficult. It really is.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But we'll keep fighting it. That's what we have to do. That's where we're at right now.
And this one woman who was actually a wolf expansionist is what other people call a wolf protectionist. I call a wolf expansionist. She came up to visit me. So we walked around the neighborhood for 45 minutes, and I was showing her all the poop piles and stuff like that. Finally, I said, "Well, you didn't come up here to just look for wolf poop, did you?" And she goes, "No, she was on her way up to Arbor Vitae to see hopefully see wolves. And I said, well, if you think you're going to see a wolf up here, you're probably going to be disappointed because it's very, very, very rare to see one. I did
Yeah.
see one this May coming, but then I found out that there was some dead beavers placed down below my property and stuff, and that's what it attracted it and stuff. But it walked right in front of me and proceeded to go across the field and never even gave me, he glanced at me and no big deal, you know. They're very habituated to humans. Um,
Yes.
even the even the people who think they're afraid of gunfire, those wolves hear gunfire when they're in their mother's womb. They're
Yeah.
living right here, you know. So
Right.
that noise means absolutely nothing to them.
Right. Well, I've seen them. I saw them, and I want to say it was the Ottawa when I was driving through a fire lane road or something like that. And there was like four of them in a pack, and they were together. They were kind of trying to get like out of sight from me. I could see that they were trotting along pretty good, but I'm driving under, and then there was one, the loner, as you said. I saw one on 45 up there by near Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin, at one point. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, it was at night. The loner was at night. The other ones were during the day, and I looked over and there was four of them running. I thought, holy cow, yeah,
There they are. Yeah, you're lucky then, because
yeah,
I, I I asked the wolf manager who's been here now for 6 years. We were at a conference in Ashland last October, and I said, well, you know, how many wolves have you ever seen? Not counting the ones that you do in connection with your job, where they're trapping wolves and collaring them and stuff. And he
right,
said not. He said none. I
yeah,
said, well, you know, that's the thing is, I've seen a lot of them, and I've encountered a lot of them, and seen what they can do.
yeah,
And you wouldn't be so he's very flippant about how the fact that humans are not attacked by wolves, which is, you know, there's only been one person in the lower 48 that has been attacked by a wolf, and that
yeah.
was a wolf who had brain damage. They did an autopsy on it, and it
Oh,
was missing its frontal lobe,
okay,
and so it was a disturbed wolf. But that doesn't mean that your animals are safe and your dogs are safe, and it doesn't mean that you might possibly not be safe if you got in the action in between a wolf and those animals that they're after, that they consider either prey or foes.
right. Yes, there's no way to know for sure that we're 100% safe. I knew a guy one time. He went to Canada and did a hunting thing, and he was walking out of the woods, getting kind of late, and there was a bunch of wolves. He was able. They were close to him. He obviously could see them, and he said that. Of course, nothing happened, but he said it's an eerie feeling to know that there's that many, and you're just out there by yourself. You don't know what they're going to do.
Exactly.
I mean, if they get, who knows? I mean, look, you got to people got to consider. They're like, oh, they're not endangered humans. Well, if the deer herds start desolating and they're getting cattle and they're overpopulating everything, they're going after meat, and you may be their next, you know, meal, and that's the whole thing. I mean, odds of that happening probably are slim, but who's to say they wouldn't do it? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things have happened in nature. Nature is unpredictable, and if they get hungry enough, they got to eat something. You know,
That's why there's some animals that just don't belong around humans, and I think
right,
wolves are some of those. So the more remote we can have them and still maintain them in Wisconsin, for those that think that that's a good idea, that's where we need to have them, but not around humans. They get habituated very easily. They're very smart. They're very observant. They learn by observing, and they teach their pack mates all the stuff they know.
right,
So a separation would be the most ideal way to think about it. You know, Yellowstone's fine as far as I'm concerned.
right,
The
right.
Grand Tetons, Glacier National Park,
Sure, yeah.
but Elko, Wisconsin, uh-uh.
No, we got to do something. Yeah, yeah.
Too many farms around there, too many people.
Right, absolutely. No, I agree with that. Oh man. Well, I'll tell you, Lori, my time's getting low here, but
Okay,
it's been great having you. I'm glad you were able to do this and make it happen. It'll be interesting to see what type of reactions we get.
okay. Well, thank you for doing it. I really appreciate it. We need all the voices out there, people who have experience. Because a lot of the people leading the program don't have any experience with wolves, let me tell you.
No, I've been I've put many years in the woods, and I'm going to be doing a lot more coming up soon. So I like
Okay.
it out there.
Well,
All
thank you
right.
for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yep.
All right.
Stay in touch, okay, Dean?
Oh, absolutely, I will. You bet I will.
Maybe okay, great.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good day. You have a
Yeah.
good day. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.